All right, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to NGS Debate Club final tournament. As you know, for term 2, we've come from a long way from the demo debate until today, and I'm sure our debaters has prepared well for today. So I would like to welcome both the government team and the opposition team that will be debating under the motion, "This House believes that traditional teaching method is still relevant to society's needs." And as always, we're following the British Parliamentary Style Debate, where each speakers are given 5 minutes, with exception for whips that they are given 3 minutes. And as for POI or point of information, the rule remains the same. So in order to ask for POI, you either unmute yourself and say POI. And for those who receive the POI, you can reject or accept it simply by saying no thanks or yes please. And you may continue with your speech. Of course, we cannot forget our honorable adjudicators for today's final round, Mr. SAR Sochea, NGS Debate Club mentor, Mr. Vichet, NGS teacher of English, and last but not least, Mr. HENG Sirimongkul, NGS Debate Club mentor. So without further ado, I would like to welcome the Prime Minister of the government team, Panha.
A new broom sweeps clean, but an old broom knows the corners. Greetings, I'm Panha, the first speaker of the government team, and I'll be proving why traditional teaching method is still relevant to society needs. What is essential for the society, mainly knowledgeable people, economy, food, healthcare, etc. So what we're trying to argue today is whether traditional teaching method is still effective or not in creating well-educated people, focused individuals who will be future doctors in the medical field, or they work in the business field, or teachers which they will further contribute to the society needs like healthcare, food, and more. Online, of course, there will be like when you're studying at a place where you used to play, when you used to sleep, and now you're studying here, of course, you have the tendency to procrastinate. And a report from SERU also states that 76% of undergraduate have identified that the lack of motivation is the biggest obstacle in studying, while 56% of graduates and professionals also felt the same way. So we can't blame that because students are lazy, they want to play games, that's why they procrastinate. It's not so, because professionals and graduates also felt the same way. So we can only blame that the situation right now where we're studying at a place where it used to be our home, where we used to rest, is the main factor that causes procrastination. All in all, traditional teaching method has provided many advantages. Like a human being, you want your society to be like having full you want your society to have everything you need. So first, traditional teaching method is still relevant to society needs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Prime Minister of the government team, for your speech. So let's hear what the opposition team have to say. So we're going to continue with the leader of opposition, Putravirakyuth. We may start now.
Teaching style changed significantly over the years. The traditional way that education was delivered is through recitation and memorization, whereas the modern way of education involves interactive method. Good noon, judges and audience. My name is Putravirakyuth. I'm from the opposition team, and I strongly disagree with the motion. THBT, traditional teaching methods are still relevant to society's need. The Prime Minister of the government team stated that traditional teaching methods are still relevant to society's need, but I strongly disagree with that because according to an article from stephenpress.com, traditional teaching methods are all about rote learning recitation, and the teachers think that all students are at the same level. Do you think this is good? Of course not. Instead of letting the students memorize the lesson, students should understand more about the lesson, and teachers shouldn't just assume that they all know the same thing. Modern teaching method develop teamwork and interpersonal communication skill. According to crimsoneducation.org, after class activity has a lot of benefit, such as it can improve academic performance by when you participate in activity you're passionate about. In conclusion, because traditional teaching use repetition, memorization of information to educate students, it meant that they are not improving their critical thinking, their problem solving, and decision-making skill. And while whereas modern thinking learning encourage students to collaborate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Leader of Opposition, for your speech. All right, I now move on to the Deputy Prime Minister of the government team. Please welcome NARITH Sopheakleap.
The traditional teaching method has always been used over the past centuries until now, and students have been following it since they started from kindergarten to university. So how could there be a statement that said it is not relevant to the society's need? Good afternoon, honorable judges, friendly opponent, ladies and gentlemen. My name is NARITH Sopheakleap and I'm the second speaker of this affirmative team. Goes by, a teacher takes a hand, opens a mind and touches a heart. One-on-one or in-person teaching is effective and demonstrates increased level of student knowledge, and especially engagement with teachers too, which could lead to student knowledge. Hence, according to the Department of Foreign Language, Harbin University in China, has stated in general that the teachers supervise the whole teaching activity, imparting systemic knowledge and academic opinions with speculative philosophy, a burden emotional thought, and a unique manner which affects students, potentially from which they receive wisdom and power that is good for the development of their IQ and even their EQ. For instance, taking traditional classes, the teacher could recognize our emotion quickly. So whether you're not focusing on the class, whether you are understanding the lessons or not, teacher will recognize right away and will tell them to keep motivating them. However, let's take a look at our situation right now. Online classes couldn't study at school. We're still in a lockdown. We're still taking online classes. So on August 3rd, 2020, PR Newswire released a survey on how hard it is when taking a learning virtual environment. So the response goes up by 65% of students dislike the virtual learning environment. So the reason is why. The students do not study. We always feel guilty for not studying, and yet they're not studying because of what? Because of not having the teachers there, because of not having the teacher to guide you, to tell you what to do, or not having friends to keep up the good work, to keep them entertained and keep the motivation up of their self-esteem to go do their works. And traditional teaching, as a matter of fact, traditional teaching is the most direct and effective method. That's all I just gotta say. Teacher control and inspire student effectively when the student encounter problems or arise conflicts. Under the general, they take flexible teaching method, adjusting the content according to the actual requirements under the general teaching arrangement, which is not only conducive to the cultivate the basic technique, but also for the good habit, informing student self-study ability. Thank you.
For now, we're going to welcome our Deputy Leader of Opposition, Thetepheap.
As the timeless proverb has stated, teacher is a role model for a student. But what if teacher use violence as punishment to them? What will happen to them? Is that really our society need? Honorable adjudicator and audience, this is Peep. You're the purity leader that will provide the second argument to oppose the motion. But before I jump straight to it, I would like to point out what was wrong with the argument first. Both of them have stated traditional teaching method is good like this, its benefits are like that. But ladies and gentlemen, during this difficult time, which is the pandemic of COVID-19, if we use traditional teaching method, will we have an online class? Will we have a debate competition through online platform right now? Of course not. So it can prove that traditional teaching method is not relevant to our society need. Second, both of them also state that it is good, one is good too. But she absolutely forgot that there is also one reference at the same year that can prove that her argument is absolutely wrong. Because according to UGC journal, they want to evaluate if the traditional teaching method is effective or not. But 95% of students said no, and only 5% of students said yes. And this evidence is based on 3 million students around the world. So it can prove that the traditional one is not relevant to our society need. So let's get back to our second argument instead, which is the corporal punishment, which means the way the teacher hit the student. According to interventioncentral.org, they have stated that corporal punishment is a big part of the traditional teaching method. So there will be 3 elements to support this statement. First, corporal punishment leads students to imitate. Teacher is the one who set an example for the student. But if the students see only the violence that teacher does every day, do you still think that they will not imitate what teacher is doing? Because even according to the
POI.
Yes, please.
Traditional teaching method is not like only using violence. It's about teachers giving explanation, and the students are passive recipients getting what they understand from the explanation. It's not like violence. How do you explain to this?
Thank you very much. But I have already stated that according to the interventionsafedraw.org, they have said that the corporal punishment is a big part of the traditional teaching method. So what will you think? You don't listen to my argument instead. So do you still think it's just a small thing? Of course not. Second, children get hurt physically and mentally. According to headline, corporal punishment consists of hand slapping, mouth slapping, fighting with a student with a big ruler standing under the sun. So just imagine that if you forget to do your homework, do you really deserve all this punishment? Of course. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are supporting traditional teaching method, it's not different that you are support the world to will be full of the violence, and you are support the world to be like this. So who will be the next human resource in the next generation, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you very much.
We're now continuing to the member of the government. Please welcome MEUNG Sovathvathanak.
Good afternoon, judges, teacher, ladies and gentlemen. My name is MEUNG Sovathvathanak, the third speaker of the government teams, which traditional teaching method is relevant to social needs. Before jumping into explanations, I would like to respond what the third speaker of the opposition has stated. So there is a lot of better way. I agree with that, but traditional teaching is not a very bad method. Take this as an example. In a countryside, there is not enough technology for the student to study. So they have to use another and or anything method that they can afford. So they can use traditional teaching method to teach the children. Let's go straight into the point. Traditional teaching method is important. It will attend 3 more years of hands-on experience. But what if they self-study and get directly into practice? There might be hole in the topic and their understanding. Medical border is a matter of life or death. If they lack of knowledge or mess up about this matter, they might be errors and might lead death in experiment as well. You can't just go directly to practice. You have to learn the theory first, unless it will be dangerous. All in all, traditional teaching method is relevant to social needs. That's why this motion should stand.
We're now moving on to the member of opposition. So please welcome Khesaranya.
Swami Vivekananda rightly said that good education is necessary for a person to stand on his feet, build his self-confidence, and make a living. However, the traditional teaching method has failed to achieve this objective. Good afternoon, everybody that's here today. My name is Khesaranya, and today I am the member of the opposition team that opposes the motion. Traditional teaching method is still relevant to society's need. But before we get into the arguments, I would like to point out what the member of the government have stated. You have stated that traditional teaching is not that bad, but it's using violence against children who didn't do their homework. Is it not that bad? Of course not. Now let us get into our third argument. Traditional teaching method provides less learning outcome. The significant reason for the failure of traditional education system is less learning outcome sets. A 2016 survey conducted by the Digital Study Trends showed that 4 out of 5 college students find digital learning technology helping them improve their grades, and more than 2/3 of college students find that digital learning help them focus more on what they're learning. Most of the students in traditional schools don't focus on what they're learning or why they're learning it. Why should I read a particular chapter? They never focus on the basic principles of starting a chapter by asking questions about what I will learn after reading this chapter. How is a piece of knowledge going to benefit me in the future? Students go through the chapters only for examination purposes. Their focus is on passing the examination. They never pay attention to the subject of study. They may be good in one subject, but don't pay attention to all the subjects equally. In traditional schools, you are supervised by teachers. As long as you are under the supervision of teachers, you maintain discipline in your work. Otherwise, you have not learned to be self-disciplined. So to sum it up, traditional teaching method makes students not focus on what they're studying and why are they studying it. Traditional teaching also only provides information from textbooks and teachers, and it only uses repetition and memorization skills to educate their students, which doesn't make their students develop critical thinking skills as well. So it can prove that traditional teaching method is not relevant to our society today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, member of the opposition. Okay, so we're now moving on to the government whip. So please welcome Sopheakleap once again. All right, so you may start now.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, my name is NARITH Sopheakleap, and I will be representing as a whip of this affirmative team. So it is a pleasure to be a whip, and before we get right into the identification of what we are going through and to summarize all of it, I've noticed some things that need to be addressed. Or maybe just a traditional teaching method that we use every day to go to school. So why are we trying so hard right now in this situation in COVID-19 to go back to use the traditional teaching method, to go to school back to the method that you guys been trying to get rid of? So no, traditional teaching will always be there since people have been using it all over the time. But regardless, it's my pleasure to summarize the whole debate. So the first speaker of our side mentioned would procrastinate their works and not having any motivation to keep forward. Therefore, using a traditional teaching method would help them. And also the second speaker said that to use Okay, thank you.
Okay, so your time is up, and thank you so much for your speech. We're now moving on to the last speaker of today's debate, the opposition whip. So please welcome Thetapheap.
If traditional teaching method is really relevant to our society need, so why do the Ministry of Education around the world always find something new to develop it? Of course, because it's not relevant anymore. Even this pencil, if this pencil is broken, will you change it? Of course, you will not change it because it's not relevant. That's why the Ministry of Education around the world always try to change it, right? Of course. And one more thing, the government has stated that right now we are using the traditional teaching method, but you are absolutely wrong because the school that you are studying right now is using the modern teaching method actually. So your rebuttal is absolutely not enough to support this motion state. That's why they don't choose. So let's get back to our three arguments. First, the comparison between traditional teaching method and the modern teaching method. Traditional one is only about the memorization, only about the recitation, but the modern one is about problem solving, time management, leadership, critical thinking. So if the traditional one doesn't provide us all of this, how can you still say it is relevant? Second, corporal punishment, which is a big part of traditional teaching method, it really affects the children nowadays. It leads them to imitate, lead them to get hurt, lead them to have a fear of going to school. So do you want a world to be full of the violence? Third, traditional teaching method provides us less learning outcome. We don't know the purpose of the study. We just learn from the book, no discussion, no extracurricular activity, no extra activity, and we just only focus on the exam. So can you still say that it's relevant? Of course not. So if you are supporting the traditional teaching method, it's not different that you are supporting people to memorize the lesson, support the world to be full of violence, and you oppose the youth to not be the human resource in the next generation. Thank you.
All right, that was the last speech given by the opposition whip of today's debate. So thank you so much for your participation. I can see that you guys have prepared well and you have shown outstanding performance as debaters, and we're proud of you. And please look forward to your result that will be released today. Thank you.